Some people lose everything and give up. Others, they fight until they change their story. Samantha Evans sat on a cold park bench, clutching her backpack, the only thing she had left. She wasn't always homeless. Once, she had a job, an apartment, a life. But after losing her job, one missed paycheck turned into another. Then came the eviction notice. Friends offered sympathy, but no real help. Shelters were full, and just like that, she had nowhere to go. For months, she lived on the streets, moving from shelter to shelter, searching for a way out. She refused to believe this was the end of her story. And one day, everything changed. A job listing at a local cafe caught her eye. No experience needed. Willing to train. All we ask is a strong work ethic. Samantha showed up the next morning before they even opened, determined. The manager, Lisa Thompson, glanced at her worn-out clothes but didn't judge. "You really want this job?" Lisa asked. Samantha nodded fiercely. "More than anything." Lisa studied her for a moment, then handed her an apron. "Then let's get to work." Samantha worked harder than anyone. She arrived early, stayed late, took every extra shift she could. She saved every dollar, skipping meals just to put money aside. And after 6 months, she walked into a tiny studio apartment, holding the keys to her first home in over a year. Tears filled her eyes. She had done it. She had fought her way back. Years later, Samantha wasn't just stable. She was thriving. She had moved into a house, started her own business. And one day, she saw a homeless woman sitting outside a cafe, the same way she once had. Samantha didn't hesitate. She walked inside, spoke to the manager, and paid for the woman's meal. Because she knew, sometimes all someone needs is a chance. Rock bottom isn't the end. It's the place where the strongest people rise. 1 year later, Samantha Evans wasn't just surviving anymore. She was building something bigger than herself. Her business, a local bakery and cafe, had grown into a thriving community spot. But for her, success wasn't just about profit. It was about giving back. One afternoon, she sat in her office when her assistant knocked. "There's someone asking for you," they said. "A woman named Rachel." Samantha frowned, unfamiliar with the name. "Send her in." The door opened, and a nervous, exhausted-looking woman stepped inside. Samantha's heart stopped. Rachel was the same woman she had helped outside the cafe a year ago. But now, she looked healthier, stronger, hopeful. Rachel swallowed hard. "I don't know if you remember me." Samantha smiled softly. "I do." Rachel exhaled, her hands trembling. "That day, when you paid for my meal, it changed everything." She wiped a tear away. "It gave me the push I needed. I got into a shelter, found a job, and now—" She reached into her purse and pulled out a set of keys. "I just moved into my own place." Samantha's throat tightened. She knew this feeling. She had been right where Rachel was. Tears burned at the edges of her eyes as she whispered, "I'm so proud of you." Rachel smiled. "I just wanted to say thank you for proving that one act of kindness can change a life." Samantha stood and hugged her. Because this was the real reward. Not money, not success, but the proof that hope is contagious. And sometimes all it takes to change the world is giving someone the chance to change their own. 2 years later, Samantha Evans stood outside a new building, staring up at the sign with tears in her eyes. The Second Chance Center. It wasn't just a shelter. It was a life-changing program, providing job training, housing assistance, and career opportunities for the homeless, for people like she once was. And today, she was cutting the ribbon on something that would change countless lives. As the crowd gathered, reporters flashed their cameras, eager to capture the moment. A journalist stepped forward. "Miss Evans, what inspired you to do this?" Samantha smiled, scanning the crowd until she found Rachel, her first success story, now working as a case manager for the center. Then she thought back to Lisa, the cafe manager who had given her a job when no one else would. And most of all, she thought of the cold park bench, the eviction notice, and the version of herself that refused to give up. Her voice was steady. "I know what it's like to have nothing," she said, "but I also know what it's like when someone believes in you." She held up the golden scissors, her heart pounding. "And now? It's my turn to believe in them." With that, she cut the ribbon. The crowd erupted into applause, and just like that, Samantha had come full circle. She had gone from homeless to homeowner to hope giver. And this was only the beginning. 5 years later, the Second Chance Center wasn't just a shelter anymore. It had expanded into multiple locations, helping thousands of people get back on their feet. Samantha Evans was now a recognized name, not for wealth or fame, but for changing lives. Her once small initiative had turned into a nationwide movement. And today, she was being honored with an award for humanitarian impact. As she stepped onto the stage, the audience rose to their feet, applauding. Samantha took a deep breath, looking out at the faces in the crowd. Some were CEOs, some were government officials. But the ones that mattered most were the men and women she had helped, people who had once been homeless, now thriving. She smiled, gripping the microphone. "I stand here today not because of my success," she said, "but because someone once gave me a chance." She paused, her voice filled with emotion. "And now I spend every day making sure no one is left behind." The crowd erupted in applause. And as Samantha stepped down, she realized something. She had once been homeless and hopeless. Now, she had built something that would outlive her, because true success isn't measured in money or fame. It's measured in the lives you lift up along the way. Your struggles don't define you, but what you do with them, that's your legacy.